Good evening. I'm Deborah Saxton, the Shaw Project Manager for this effort supporting Louisiana Department of Natural Resources. We are pleased to present the progress that we've made and the findings since the last update.
Hey, closer to the mic, please.
A little bit louder,
Certainly.
okay.
In case you haven't noticed, we now have 3 observation relief wells installed with geophysical logging results from observation relief well number 2 at the Dugas-LeBlanc property and preliminary results of the observation relief well number 3 at the Trish property. We also have geophysical logging results from the logging performed just yesterday on the Texas Brine geotechnical boring. Both the observation well number 2 at the Dugas-LeBlanc property and the Texas Brine geotechnical boring are both showing an accumulation of gas at the top of the Louisville aquifer. Early reports of the observation well number 3 at the Trish property do not indicate an accumulation of gas in the top of the alluvial aquifer. Approximately 5 feet of accumulation of gas was observed in observation well number 2 at the Dugas-LeBlanc property, and approximately 10 feet of gas accumulation was observed in the Texas Brine geotechnical boring. For the most part, this is what we expected to see and confirms that the wells are located in the right location. We will continue to collect data from these wells, including the geophysical logging in the observation relief well number 1 and additional pressure readings from those wells. We plan to begin venting and flaring from observation relief well number 2 and possibly observation relief well number 1. And that will depend on the results of the geophysical logging that's yet to be done in that well. We are currently evaluating additional locations and working to obtain property access for future observation relief wells. I'd now like to turn this over to Brian Davis to expand on the results of this geophysical logging from the wells and the cavern data collection. Thank you.
Well, at the risk of being a bit repetitive, all of my notes have already kind of been covered by these guys, but I will give you a little more background on the relief wells, and I'm going to kind of refer this slide over here, so if I'll try and talk loud so you can hear me. This is kind of our preliminary map that we put together on top of the aquifer. The intentions of the map is to try and determine where best to go to drill the relief wells. And yeah, if you can bring that'd be a better way to do it. And so what we found is we found a local high right in this area, which here is the slurry or the sinkhole right here where the little star is. And where we put our relief wells is here is the relief well 2. The relief well 2 was one of the wells that was logged late last night. We got the results and we determined there was about a 5-foot gas column in that well, which means we found some trapped gas, which is good news because we can start venting it and getting it out of the ground. We have not logged number 1 yet. They had trouble getting down. We had to go back in with a coil tubing unit and wash that, and so we're going to try and re-log that one tomorrow. We did, however, log the number 3 well today, and the number 3 well, which you'll notice is kind of pushing over closer to Bayou Corn. The number 3 well, we actually found it to be wet. We didn't find an accumulated gas column. Okay? So what that tells us is it looks like, for the data that we currently have, is our high is focused in around here, and that's where our gas is trapped, closer to the sinkhole and a little farther away from the community at this point in time, based on the information we have. The cavern stuff was kind of covered by Texas Brine. I don't have a bunch of additional information. He kind of summarized that. But I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Gary Hecox. He's a geologist, and he can kind of explain to us a little more about the subsurface geology.
Okay,
before we get to the subsurface, the path forward on the relief well right now, we're moving forward in a very rapid but very measured approach. Safety is the number one thing we have to do. So right now what's going on with relief well 2, observation relief well 2, is it's shut in now. We're going to be monitoring pressures in that well. We don't know what the wellhead pressure is right now, but we're going to be monitoring that, and we'll probably get our first reading in the morning. In addition, relief well 2, which we know has gas, we're going to be sampling the gas so we can get a complete profile of what the gas looks like, what the isotopes look like, so we can essentially fingerprint the gas. Assuming that relief well 1 also has gas, we'll do the same thing. We'll shut it in, we'll monitor pressure, and we're going to get a fingerprint on the gas. What you'll see going on today and tomorrow, we've got a flare out there on a portable trailer. We're going to be hooking that flare up so we can begin to flare. We're going to have one flare on 2 wells. What we'll do is run common lines since the wells are fairly close to a single flare, and we'll monitor that. What we don't want to do, however, is get real aggressive flaring all at once, because that can damage the well and it won't allow us to monitor and collect the data we need to evaluate additional relief wells. So we're going to start off and follow a fairly methodical way of doing it, but we're doing it as fast as we can, but still keep everybody safe. Right now, this area, this is a map that the most recent data went into it last night. This map's going to be updated as new data comes in, and we're evaluating that with Brian to determine additional vent well locations. So these first 3 are just the start. And we're looking at additional areas, we're looking at property access and everything. So if somebody calls up talking about property access, the better access we've got, the better this thing's going to go. That's kind of the sequence we're going to run on the relief wells right now. So you're going to see the flare in the air. It's on the trailer now. They'll stand it up. Everything's going forward. Back on the cavern, we've talked about the cavern. They're monitoring pressure right now. We have pulled fluid hydrocarbon samples that came out of the frac tank when they were initially flaring the well. In addition, we pulled hydrocarbon samples and analyzed those out of the sinkhole.